Chapter 19. And Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, went back to his house in Jerusalem in peace. And Jehu, the son of Hanani the seer, went to King Jehoshaphat and said to him, Is it right for you to go to the help of evildoers, loving the haters of the Lord? Because of this, the wrath of the Lord has come on you. But still there is some good in you, for you have put away the wood pillars out of the land, and have given your heart to the worship of God. And Jehoshaphat was living in Jerusalem, and he went out again among the people, from Beersheba to the hill country of Ephraim, guiding them back to the Lord, the God of the fathers. And he put judges through all the land, in every walled town of Judah, and said to the judges, Take care what you do, for you are judging not for man but for the Lord, and he is with you in the decisions you give. So now let the fear of the Lord be in you, do your work with care, for in the Lord our God there is no evil, or respect for high position, or taking of payment to do wrong. Then in Jerusalem he gave authority to certain of the Levites and the priests and the heads of families of Israel to give decisions for the Lord, and in the causes of those living in Jerusalem. And he gave them their orders, saying, You are to do your work in the fear of the Lord, in good faith and with a true heart. And if any cause comes before you from your brothers living in their towns, where the death punishment is in question, or where there are questions of law or order, or rules or decisions, make them take care that they are not in the wrong before their Lord, so that wrath may not come on you and on your brothers. Do this and you yourselves will not be in the wrong. And now, Amariah, the chief priest, is over you in all questions to do with the Lord, and Zebadiah the son of Ishmael, the head of the family of Judah, in everything to do with the king's business, and the Levites will be overseers for you. Be strong to do the work, and may the Lord be with the upright. Chapter 20. Now after this, the children of Moab and the children of Ammon, and with them some of the Meuniim, made war against Jehoshaphat. And they came to Jehoshaphat with the news, saying, A great army is moving against you from Edom across the sea, and now they are in Hazazon Tamar, which is En-gedi. Then Jehoshaphat, in his fear, went to the Lord for directions, and gave orders all through Judah for the people to go without food. And Judah came together to make prayer for help from the Lord. From every town of Judah they came to give worship to the Lord. And Jehoshaphat took his place in the meeting of Judah and Jerusalem, in the house of the Lord in front of the new open space, and said, O Lord, the God of our fathers, are you not God in heaven? Are you not ruler over all the kingdoms of the nations? And in your hands are power and strength so that no one is able to keep his place against you. Did you not, O Lord our God, after driving out the people of this land before your people Israel, give it to the seed of Abraham, your friend, forever? And they made it their living place, building there a holy house for your name, and saying, If evil comes on us, the sword, or punishment, or disease, or need of food, we will come to this house and to you, for your name is in this house, crying to you in our trouble, and you will give us salvation in answer to our cry. And now, see, the children of Ammon and Moab and the people of Mount Seir, whom you kept Israel from attacking when they came out of Egypt, so that turning to one side they did not send destruction on them. See now, how as our reward they have come to send us out of your land which you have given us as our heritage. O our God, will you not be their judge? For our strength is not equal to this great army which is coming against us, and we are at a loss what to do, but our eyes are on you. And all Judah were waiting before their Lord, with their little ones, their wives, and their children. Then, before all the meeting, the Spirit of the Lord came on Jahaziel, the son of Zechariah, son of Benaiah, son of Jeiel, son of Mattaniah, a Levite and one of the family of Asaph, and he said, Give ear, O Judah, and you people of Jerusalem, and you, King Jehoshaphat. The Lord says to you, Have no fear and do not be troubled on account of this great army, for the fight is not yours but God's. Go down against them tomorrow. See, they are coming up by the slope of Ziz, at the end of the valley, before the wasteland of Jeruel. you will come face to face with them. There will be no need for you to take up arms in this fight. Put yourselves in position, and keep where you are, and you will see the salvation of the Lord with you, O Judah and Jerusalem. Have no fear and do not be troubled. Go out against them tomorrow, for the Lord is with you." Then Jehoshaphat went down with his face to the earth, and all Judah and the people of Jerusalem gave worship to the Lord, falling down before him. And the Levites, the children of the Kohathites and the Korahites, got to their feet and gave praise to the Lord, the God of Israel, with a loud voice. And early in the morning they got up and went out to the wasteland of Tekoa, and when they were going out, Jehoshaphat took his station and said to them, "Give ear to me, O Judah and you people of Jerusalem. Have faith in the Lord your God and you will be safe. Have faith in his prophets and all will go well for you." And after discussion with the people, he put in their places those who were to make melody to the Lord, praising him in holy robes, while they went at the head of the army, and saying, "May the Lord be praised, for his mercy is unchanging forever." And at the first notes of song and praise the Lord sent a surprise attack against the children of Ammon and Moab and the people of Mount Seir, who had come against Judah, and they were overcome. And the children of Ammon and Moab made an attack on the people of Mount Seir with a view to their complete destruction, and when they had put an end to the people of Seir, every man's hand was turned against his neighbor for his destruction. And Judah came to the watchtower of the wasteland, and looking in the direction of the army, they saw only dead bodies stretched on the earth. No living man was to be seen. And when Jehoshaphat and his people came to take their goods from them, they saw beasts in great numbers, and wealth and clothing and things of value, more than they were able to take away. All this they took for themselves, and they were 3 days getting it away, there was so much. On the 4th day they all came together in the valley of blessing, and there they gave blessing to the Lord, for which cause that place has been named the Valley of Blessing to this day. Then all the men of Judah and Jerusalem went back, with Jehoshaphat at their head, coming back to Jerusalem with joy, for the Lord had made them glad over their haters. So they came to Jerusalem with corded instruments and wind instruments into the house of the Lord. And the fear of God came on all the kingdoms of the lands, when they had news of how the Lord made war on those who came against Israel. So the kingdom of Jehoshaphat was quiet, for the Lord gave him rest on every side. And Jehoshaphat was king over Judah. He was 35 years old when he became king, and he was ruling for 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shili. He went in the ways of his father Asa, not turning away, but doing right in the eyes of the Lord. The high places, however, were not taken away, and the hearts of the people were still not true to the God of their fathers. Now as for the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, first and last, they are recorded in the words of Jehu, the son of Hanani, which were put in the book of the kings of Israel. After this Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, became friends with Ahaziah, king of Israel, who did much evil. Together they made ships to go to Tarshish, building them in Ezion-Geber. Then the word of Eliezer the prophet, the son of Dodavahu of Mareshah, came against Jehoshaphat, saying, "Because you have let yourself be joined with Ahaziah, the Lord has sent destruction on your works." And the ships were broken and were not able to go to Tarshish. Chapter 21. And Jehoshaphat went to rest with his fathers, and his body was put into the earth in the town of David. And Jehoram his son became king in his place. And he had brothers, sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariah, Michael, and Shephatiah. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. And their father gave them much silver and gold and things of great value, as well as walled towns in Judah, but the kingdom he gave to Jehoram, because he was the oldest. Now when Jehoram had taken his place over his father's kingdom, and had made his position safe, he put all his brothers to death with the sword, as well as some of the princes of Israel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 8 years. He went in the ways of the kings of Israel, and did as the family of Ahab did. For the daughter of Ahab was his wife, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. But it was not the Lord's purpose to send destruction on the family of David, because of the agreement he had made with David, when he said he would give to him and to his sons a light forever. In his time Edom made themselves free from the rule of Judah, and took a king for themselves. Then Jehoram went over with his captains and all his war carriages and made an attack by night on the Edomites, whose forces were all round him, on the captains of their war carriages. So Edom made themselves free from the rule of Judah, to this day, and at the same time Lebanon made itself free from his rule, because he was turned away from the Lord, the God of his fathers. And more than this, he made high places in the mountains of Judah, teaching the people of Jerusalem to go after false gods, and guiding Judah away from the true way. And a letter came to him from Elijah the prophet, saying, "The Lord, the God of your father David, says, because you have not kept to the ways of your father Jehoshaphat or the ways of Asa, king of Judah, but have gone in the way of the kings of Israel, and have made Judah and the people of Jerusalem go after false gods, as the family of Ahab did, and because you have put to death your father's sons, your brothers, who were better than yourself, now, truly, the Lord will send a great destruction on your people and your children and your wives and everything which is yours. And you yourself will undergo the cruel pains of a disease in your stomach, so that day by day your inside will be falling out because of the disease." Then the Philistines and the Arabians, who are by Ethiopia, were moved by the Lord to make war on Jehoram, and they came up against Judah, forcing a way into it, and took away all the goods in the king's house, as well as his sons and his wives, so that he had no son but only Jehoahaz, the youngest. And after all this the Lord sent on him a disease of the stomach from which it was impossible for him to be made well. And time went on, and after 2 years, his inside falling out because of the disease, he came to his death in cruel pain. And his people made no burning for him like the burning made for his fathers. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 8 years, and at his death he was not regretted. They put his body into the earth in the town of David, but not in the resting place of the kings. Chapter 22. And the people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place, for the band of men who came with the Arabians to the army had put all the older sons to death. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, became king. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. He went in the ways of the family of Ahab, for his mother was his teacher in evil-doing. And he did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as the family of Ahab did, for after the death of his father they were his guides to his destruction. Acting on their suggestion, he went with Jehoram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, to make war on Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth-Gilead, and Joram was wounded by the bowman. And he went back to Jezreel to get well from the wounds which they had given him at Ramah when he was fighting against Hazael, king of Aram. And Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to Jezreel to see Jehoram, the son of Ahab, because he was ill. Now by the purpose of God, Ahaziah's journey to see Jehoram was the cause of his downfall. For when he came there, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, who had been marked out by the Lord for the destruction of the family of Ahab. Now when Jehu was effecting the punishment of the family of Ahab, he came to the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers, the servants of Ahaziah, and put them to death. And he went in search of Ahaziah, and when they came where he was, for he was in a secret place in Samaria, they took him to Jehu and put him to death. Then they put his body to rest in the earth, for they said, "He is the son of Jehoshaphat, whose heart was true to the Lord." So the family of Ahaziah had no power to keep the kingdom. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she had all the rest of the seed of the kingdom of Judah put to death. But Jehoshaphat, the daughter of the king, secretly took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, away from among the king's sons who were put to death, and put him and the woman who took care of him in a bedroom. So Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest and sister of Ahaziah, kept him safe from Athaliah, so that she did not put him to death. And she kept him safe with her in the house of God for 6 years, while Athaliah was ruling the land. Chapter 23. In the 7th year, Jehoiada made himself strong, and made an agreement with the captains of hundreds, Azariah, the son of Jeroham, Ishmael, the son of Jehohanan, Azariah, the son of Obed, Mariah, the son of Adiah, and Elishaphat, the son of Zichri. And they went through Judah, getting together the Levites and the heads of families in Israel from all the towns of Judah, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the people made an agreement with the king in the house of God. And he said to them, Truly, the king's son will be king, as the Lord has said about the sons of David. This is what you are to do: let 1/3 of you, of the priests and Levites, who come in on the Sabbath, keep the doors, and 1/3 are to be stationed at the king's house, and 1/3 at the doorway of the horses, while all the people are waiting in the open spaces round the house of the Lord. But let no one come into the house of the Lord but only the priests and those of the Levites who have work to do there. They may go in, for they are holy, but the rest of the people are to keep the orders of the Lord. And the Levites are to make a circle round the king, every man being armed, and any man who comes into the house is to be put to death. You are to keep with the king when he comes in and when he goes out. So the Levites and all Judah did as Jehoiada the priest had given them orders. Everyone took with him his men, those who were to come in and those who were to go out on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada had not sent away the divisions. Then Jehoiada the priest gave to the captains of hundreds the spears and body covers which had been King David and which were kept in the house of God. And he put all the people in position, every man with his instruments of war in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left, by the altar and the house and all round the king. Then they made the king's son come out, and they put the crown on his head and gave him the armbands and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons put the holy oil on him and said, Long life to the king. Now Athaliah, hearing the noise of the people running and praising the king, came to the people in the house of the Lord, and looking, she saw the king in his place by the pillar at the doorway, and the captains and the horns by his side. And all the people of the land were giving signs of joy and sounding the horns, and the makers of melody were playing on instruments of music, taking the chief part in the song of praise. Then Athaliah, violently parting her robes, said, Broken faith, broken faith. Then Jehoiada the priest gave orders to the captains of hundreds who had authority over the army, saying, Take her outside the lines, and let anyone who goes after her be put to death with the sword. For the priest said, Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord. So they put their hands on her, and she went to the king's house by the doorway of the king's horses, and there she was put to death. And Jehoiada made an agreement between the Lord and all the people and the king, that they would be the Lord's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal and had it pulled down, and its altars and images broken up, and Mattan, the priest of Baal, they put to death before the altars. And Jehoiada put the work in the care of the house of the Lord into the hands of the priests and the Levites, who had been grouped in divisions by David to make burnt offerings to the Lord, as it is recorded in the law of Moses, with joy and song as David had said. And he put doorkeepers at the doors of the Lord's house, to see that no one who was unclean in any way might come in. Then he took the captains of hundreds and the chiefs and the rulers of the people and all the people of the land, and they came down with the king from the house of the Lord through the higher doorway into the king's house, and put the king on the seat of the kingdom. So all the people of the land were glad and the town was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword. Chapter 24. Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he was ruling for 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord as long as Jehoiada the priest was living. And Jehoiada took 2 wives for him, and he became the father of sons and daughters. Now after this Joash had a desire to put the house of the Lord into good order again, and getting together the priests and Levites, he said to them, "Go out into the towns of Judah year by year, and get from all Israel money to keep the house of your God in good condition, and see that this is done without loss of time." The Levites, however, were slow in doing so. Then the king sent for Jehoiada, the chief priest, and said to him, "Why have you not given the Levites orders that the tax fixed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the meeting of Israel, for the tent of witness, is to be gotten from Judah and Jerusalem and handed over?" For the house of the Lord had been broken up by Athaliah, that evil woman, and her sons, and all its holy things they had given to the Baals. So at the king's order they made a chest and put it outside the doorway of the house of the Lord. And an order was sent out through all Judah and Jerusalem that payment was to be made to the Lord of the tax which Moses, the servant of God, had put on Israel in the wasteland. And all the chiefs and all the people came gladly and put their money into the chest, till they had all given. So when the chest was taken to the king's servants by the Levites, and they saw that there was much money in it, the king's scribe and the chief priest's servant took the money out, and put the chest back in its place. They did this day by day, and got together a great amount of money. Then the king and Jehoiada gave it to those who were responsible for getting the work done on the Lord's house, and with it they got wall builders and woodworkers and metal workers to put the house of the Lord in good order again. So the workmen did their work, making good what was damaged and building up the house of God till it was strong and beautiful again. And when the work was done, they took the rest of the money to the king and Jehoiada, and it was used for making the vessels for the house of the Lord, all the vessels needed for the offerings, the spoons and the vessels of gold and silver. And as long as Jehoiada was living, the regular burnt offerings were offered in the house of the Lord. But Jehoiada became old and full of days, and he came to his end. He was 130 years old at the time of his death. And they put him into his last resting place in the town of David, among the kings, because he had done good in Israel for God and for his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada, the chiefs of Judah came and went down on their faces before the king. Then the king gave ear to them. And they gave up the house of the Lord God of their fathers, and became worshippers of pillars of wood and of the images, and because of this sin of theirs, wrath came on Judah and Jerusalem. And the Lord sent them prophets to make them come back to him, and they gave witness against them, but they would not give ear. Then the Spirit of God came on Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada the priest, and, getting up before the people, he said to them, "God has said, why do you go against the orders of the Lord, so that everything goes badly for you? Because you have given up the Lord, he has given you up." But when they had made a secret design against him, he was stoned with stones, by the king's order, in the outer square of the Lord's house. So King Joash did not keep in mind how good Jehoiada his father had been to him, but put his son to death. And in the hour of his death he said, "May the Lord see it and take payment." Now in the spring, the army of the Arameans came up against him. They came against Judah and Jerusalem, putting to death all the great men of the people and sending all the goods they took from them to the king of Damascus. For though the army of Aram was only a small one, the Lord gave a very great army into their hands, because they had given up the Lord, the God of the fathers. So they put into effect the punishment of Joash. And when they had gone away from him, for he was broken with disease, his servants made a secret design against him because of the blood of the son of Jehoiada the priest, and they put him to death on his bed. And they put his body into the earth in the town of David, but not in the resting place of the kings. Those who made designs against him were Zabad, the son of Shemeth, an Ammonite woman, and Jehozabad, the son of Shimrith, a Moabite woman. Now the story of his sons, and all the words said by the prophet against him, and the building up again of the Lord's house, are recorded in the account in the book of the Kings. and Amaziah his son became king in his place. Chapter 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 29 years. His mother's name was Jehoaddan of Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, but his heart was not completely true to the Lord. Now when he became strong in the kingdom, he put to death those men who had taken the life of the king his father. But he did not put their children to death, for he kept the orders of the Lord recorded in the book of the law of Moses, saying, "The fathers are not to be put to death for their children or the children for their fathers, but a man is to be put to death for the sin which he himself has done." Then Amaziah got all Judah together and put them in order by their families, even all Judah and Benjamin, under captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, and he had those of 20 years old and overnumbered. And there came to 300,000 of the best fighting men, trained for war and in the use of the spear and the body cover. And for 100 talents of silver, he got 100,000 fighting men from Israel. But a man of God came to him, saying, "O king, let not the army of Israel go with you. For the Lord is not with Israel, that is, the children of Ephraim, but go yourself, and be strong in war. God will not let you go down before those who are fighting against you, for God has power to give help or to send you down before your attackers." Then Amaziah said to the man of God, "But what is to be done about the 100 talents which I have given for the armed band of Israel?" And the man of God in answer said, "God is able to give you much more than this." So Amaziah, separating the armed band which had come to him from Ephraim, sent them back again, which made them very angry with Judah, and they went back burning with wrath. Then Amaziah took heart, and went out at the head of his people and came to the valley of Salt, where he put to death 10,000 of the children of Seir, and 10,000 more the children of Israel took living, and made them go up to the top of the rock, pushing them down from the top of the rock so that their bodies were broken by the fall. But the men of the band which Amaziah sent back and did not take with him to the fight, made attacks on the towns of Judah from Samaria to Beth-horon, putting to death 3,000 of their people and taking away a great store of their goods. Now when Amaziah came back from the destruction of the Edomites, he took the gods of the children of Seir and made them his gods, worshipping them and burning offerings before them. And so the wrath of the Lord was moved against Amaziah, and he sent a prophet to him, who said, "Why have you gone after the gods of the people who have not given their people salvation from your hands?" But while he was talking to him, the king said to him, "Have we made you one of the king's government? Say no more, or it will be the cause of your death." Then the prophet gave up protesting, and said, "It is clear to me that God's purpose is your destruction, because you have done this and have not given ear to my words." Then Amaziah, king of Judah, acting on the suggestion of his servants, sent to Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Jehu, king of Israel, saying, "Come, let us have a meeting face to face." And Joash, king of Israel, sent to Amaziah, king of Judah, saying, "The thorn tree in Lebanon sent to the cedar in Lebanon, saying, 'Give your daughter to my son for a wife,' and a beast from the woodland in Lebanon went by, crushing the thorn under his feet. You say, 'See, I have overcome Edom,' and your heart is lifted up with pride. Now keep in your country. Why do you make causes of trouble, putting yourself, and Judah with you, in danger of downfall?" But Amaziah gave no attention, and this was the purpose of God, so that he might give them up into the hands of Joash, because they had gone after the gods of Edom. And so Joash, king of Israel, went up, and he and Amaziah, king of Judah, came face to face at Beth-shemesh in Judah. And Judah was overcome before Israel, and they went in flight, every man to his tent. And Joash, king of Israel, made Amaziah, king of Judah, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, prisoner at Beth-shemesh, and took him to Jerusalem. And he had the wall of Jerusalem pulled down from the doorway of Ephraim to the doorway in the angle, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and silver and all the vessels which were in the house of the Lord, under the care of Obed-Edom, and all the wealth from the king's house, as well as those whose lives would be the price of broken faith, and went back to Samaria. Amaziah, son of Joash, king of Judah, went on living for 15 years after the death of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziah, first and last, are they not recorded in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel? Now from the time when Amaziah gave up worshipping the Lord, they made secret designs against him in Jerusalem, and he went in flight to Lachish, but they sent to Lachish after him and put him to death there. And they took his body on horseback and put it into the earth with his fathers in the town of David. Chapter 26. Then all the people of Judah took Uzziah, who was 16 years old, and made him king in place of his father Amaziah. He was the builder of Eloth, which he got back for Judah after the death of the king. Uzziah was 16 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 52 years. His mother's name was Chilia of Jerusalem. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father Amaziah had done. He gave himself to searching after God in the days of Zechariah, who made men wise in the fear of God, and as long as he was true to the Lord, God made things go well for him. He went out and made war against the Philistines, pulling down the walls of Gath and Jabneh and Ashdod, and building towns in the country round Ashdod and among the Philistines. And God gave him help against the Philistines, and against the Arabians living in Gurbaal, and against the Meuniim. The Ammonites gave offerings to Uzziah, and news of him went out as far as the limit of Egypt, for he became very great in power. Uzziah made towers in Jerusalem, at the doorway and the angle and at the doorway and the valley and at the turn of the wall, arming them. And he put up towers in the wasteland and made places for storing water. For he had much cattle, in the low hills and in the tableland, and he had farmers and vine-keepers in the mountains and in the fertile land, for he was a lover of farming. In addition, Uzziah had an army of fighting men who went out to war in bands, as they had been listed by Jeiel the scribe and Maariah the ruler, under the authority of Hananiah, one of the king's captains. The heads of families, the strong men of war, were 2,600. And under their orders was a trained army of 307,500, of great strength in war, helping the king against any who came against him. And Uzziah had all these forces armed with body covers and spears and head covers and coats of metal and bows and stones for sending from leather bands. And in Jerusalem he made machines, the invention of expert men, to be placed on the towers and angles of the walls for sending arrows and great stones. And his name was honored far and wide, for he was greatly helped till he was strong. But when he had become strong, his heart was lifted up in pride, causing his destruction, and he did evil against the Lord his God, for he went into the temple of the Lord for the purpose of burning perfumes on the altar of perfumes. And Azariah the priest went in after him, with 80 of the Lord's priests, who were strong men. And they made protests to Uzziah the king, and said to him, "The burning of perfumes, Uzziah, is not your business but that of the priests, the sons of Aaron, who have been made holy for this work. Go out of the holy place, for you have done wrong, and it will not be to your honor before God." Then Uzziah was angry, and he had in his hand a vessel for burning perfume, and while his wrath was bitter against the priests, the mark of the leper's disease came out on his brow, before the eyes of the priests in the house of the Lord by the altar of perfumes. And Azariah, the chief priest, and all the priests, looking at him, saw the mark of the leper on his brow, and they sent him out quickly, and he himself went out straightway, for the Lord's punishment have come on him. So King Uzziah was a leper till the day of his death, living separately in his private house, for he was cut off from the house of God, and Jotham his son was ruling over his house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziah, first and last, were recorded by Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz. So Uzziah went to rest with his fathers, And they put his body into the earth in the field used for the resting place of the kings, for they said, "He is a leper," and Jotham his son became king in his place. Chapter 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 16 years, and his mother's name was Jerusha, the daughter of Zadok. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father Uzziah had done, but he did not go into the temple of the Lord. And the people still went on in their evil ways. He put up the high doorway of the house of the Lord, and did much building on the wall of the Ophel. In addition, he made towns in the hill country of Judah, and strong buildings and towers in the woodlands. He went to war with the king of the children of Ammon and overcame them. That year, the children of Ammon gave him 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 measures of grain and 10,000 measures of barley. And the children of Ammon gave him the same amount the second year and the third. So Jotham became strong, because in all his ways he made the Lord his guide. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars and his ways, are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 16 years. And Jotham went to rest with his fathers, and they put his body into the earth in the town of David, and Ahaz his son became king in his place. Chapter 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he was ruling in Jerusalem for 16 years. He did not do what was right in the eyes of the Lord, like David his father, but he went in the ways of the kings of Israel and made images of metal for the Baals. More than this, he had offerings burned in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and made his children go through fire, copying the disgusting ways of the nations whom the Lord had sent out of the land before the children of Israel. And he made offerings and had perfumes burned in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. So the Lord his God gave him up into the hands of the king of Aram, and they overcame him, and took away a great number of his people as prisoners to Damascus. Then he was given into the hands of the king of Israel, who sent great destruction on him. For Pekah, the son of Remaliah, in one day put to death 120,000 men of Judah, all of them good fighting men, because they had given up the Lord, the God of the fathers. And Zichri, a great fighting man of Ephraim, put to death Maariah, the king's son, and Azrikam, the controller of his house, and Elkanah, who was second in authority to the king. And the children of Israel took away as prisoners from their brothers 200,000, women and sons and daughters, and a great store of their goods, and took them to Samaria. But a prophet of the Lord was there, named Oded, and he went out in front of the army which was coming into Samaria and said to them, "Truly, because the Lord, the God of your fathers, was angry with Judah, he gave them up into your hands, and you have put them to death in an outburst of wrath stretching up to heaven. And now your purpose is to keep the children of Judah and Jerusalem as men servants and women servants under your yoke. But are there no sins against the Lord your God to be seen among yourselves? And now give ear to me, and send back the prisoners whom you have taken from your brothers, for the wrath of the Lord is burning against you." Then certain of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azariah, the son of Johanan, Berechiah, the son of Meshillemoth, Joshkiah, the son of Shallum, and Amasa the son of Hadlai, put themselves against those who had come from the war, and said to them, "You are not to let these prisoners come here, for what you are designing to do will be a cause of sin against the Lord to us, making even greater our sin and our wrongdoing, which now are great enough, and his wrath is burning against Israel." So the armed men gave up the prisoners and the goods they had taken to the heads and the meeting of the people. And those men who have been named went up and took the prisoners, clothing those among them who were uncovered, with things from the goods which had been taken in the war, and putting robes on them and shoes on their feet, and they gave them food and drink and oil for their bodies, and seating all the feeble among them on asses, they took them to Jericho, the town of palm trees, to their people, and then went back to Samaria. At that time King Ahaz sent for help to the king of Assyria, for the Edomites had come again, attacking Judah and taking away prisoners. And the Philistines, forcing their way into the towns of the lowlands and the south of Judah, had taken Beth-Shemesh and Aijalon and Jediroth and Soko, with their daughter towns, as well as Timnah and Jimtsu and their daughter towns, and were living there. For the Lord made Judah low, because of Ahaz, king of Israel. For he had given up all self-control in Judah, sinning greatly against the Lord. Then Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, came to him, but was a cause of trouble and not of strength to him. For Ahaz took a part of the wealth from the house of the Lord, and from the house of the king and of the great men, and gave it to the king of Assyria, but it was no help to him. And in the time of his trouble, this same king Ahaz did even more evil against the Lord. For he made offerings to the gods of Damascus, who were attacking him, and said, because the gods of the kings of Aram are giving them help, I will make offerings to them so that they may give me help. But they were the cause of his downfall, and of that of all Israel. And Ahaz got together the vessels of the house of God, cutting up all the vessels of the house of God, and shutting the doors of the Lord's house, and he made altars in every part of Jerusalem. And in every town of Judah he made high places where perfumes were burned to other gods, awaking the wrath of the Lord, the God of his fathers. Now the rest of his acts and all his ways, first and last, are recorded in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. And Ahaz went to rest with his fathers, and they put his body into the earth in Jerusalem, but they did not put him in the resting place of the kings of Israel, and Hezekiah his son became king in his place. Chapter 29. Hezekiah became king when he was 25 years old, and he was king in Jerusalem for 29 years, and his mother's name was Aviah, the daughter of Zechariah. He did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, as his father David had done. In the first year of his rule, in the first month, opening the doors of the Lord's house, he made them strong. And he sent for the priests and the Levites, and got them together in the wide place on the east side, and said to them, Give ear to me, O Levites, now make yourselves holy, and make holy the house of the Lord, the God of your fathers, and take away everything unclean from the holy place. For our fathers have done evil, sinning in the eyes of the Lord our God, and have given him up, turning away their faces from the house of the Lord, and turning their backs on him. The doors of his house have been shut and the lights put out, no perfumes have been burned or offerings made to the God of Israel in his holy place. And so the wrath of the Lord has come on Judah and Jerusalem, and he has given them up to be a cause of fear and wonder and shame, as your eyes have seen. For see, our fathers have been put to death with the sword, and our sons and daughters and wives have been taken away prisoners because of this. Now it is my purpose to make an agreement with the Lord, the God of Israel, so that the heat of his wrath may be turned away from us. My sons, take care now, for you have been marked out by the Lord to come before him and to be his servants, burning offerings to him. Then the Levites took their places, Mahath, the son of Amasai, and Joel, the son of Azariah, among the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish, the son of Abdi, and Azariah, the son of Jehalelel, and of the Gershonites, Joah, the son of Zimmah, and Eden, the son of Joah, and of the sons of Elizaphan, Shimri and Jeuel, and of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah and Mattaniah, and of the sons of Heman, Jehuel and Shimei, and of the sons of Jeduthun, Shemaiah, and Uzziel. And they got their brothers together and made themselves holy, and went in, as the king had said by the word of the Lord, to make the house of the Lord clean. And the priests went into the inner part of the house of the Lord to make it clean, and everything unclean which was to be seen in the temple of the Lord they took out into the outer square of the Lord's house, and the Levites got it together and took it away to the stream Kidron. On the first day of the first month the work of making the house holy was started, and on the 8th day they came to the covered way of the Lord. In 8 days they made the Lord's house holy, and on the 16th day of the first month the work was done. Then they went in to King Hezekiah and said, "We have made all the house of the Lord clean, as well as the altar of burnt offerings with all its vessels, and the table for the holy bread, with all its vessels, and all the vessels which were turned out by King Ahaz in his sin while he was king. We have put in order and made holy, and now they are in their places before the altar of the Lord." Then Hezekiah the king got up early, and got together the great men of the town, and went up to the house of the Lord. And they took with them 7 oxen and 7 male sheep and 7 lambs and 7 he-goats as a sin offering for the kingdom and for the holy house and for Judah. And he gave orders to the sons of Aaron, the priests, that these were to be offered on the altar of the Lord. So they put the oxen to death, and their blood was given to the priests to be drained out against the altar. Then they put the male sheep to death, draining out their blood against the altar, and they put the lambs to death, draining out their blood against the altar. Then they took the he-goats for the sin offering, placing them before the king in the meeting of the people. And they put their hands on them, and the priests put them to death, and made a sin offering with their blood on the altar, to take away the sin of all Israel. For the king gave orders that the burnt offering and the sin offering were for all Israel. Then he put the Levites in their places in the house of the Lord, with brass and corded instruments of music as ordered by David and Gad, the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet, for the order was the Lord's, given by his prophets. So the Levites took their places with David's instruments, and the priests with their horns. And Hezekiah gave the word for the burnt offering to be offered on the altar. And when the burnt offering was started, then the song of the Lord was started, with the blowing of horns and with all the instruments of David, king of Israel. And all the people gave worship, to the sound of songs and the blowing of horns. And this went on till the burnt offering was ended. And at the end of the offering, the king and all who were present with him gave worship with bent heads. Then King Hezekiah and the captains gave orders to the Levites to give praise to God in the words of David and Asaph the seer. And they made songs of praise with joy, and with bent heads gave worship. Then Hezekiah made answer and said, "Now that you have given yourselves to the Lord, come near and take offerings and praise offerings into the house of the Lord." So all the people took in offerings and praise offerings, and those whose hearts were moved took in burnt offerings. The number of burnt offerings which the people took in was 70 oxen, 100 male sheep, and 200 lambs. All these were for burnt offerings to the Lord. And the holy things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep. There were not enough priests for the work of cutting up all the burnt offerings, so their brothers the Levites gave them help till the work was done and the priests had made themselves holy, for the Levites were more upright in heart to make themselves holy than the priests. And there was a great amount of burnt offerings, with the fat of the peace offerings and the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the work of the Lord's house was put in order. And Hezekiah and all the people were full of joy, because God had made the people ready, for the thing was done suddenly. Chapter 30. Then Hezekiah sent word to all Israel and Judah, and sent letters to Ephraim and Manasseh, requesting them to come to the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, to keep the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. For the king, after discussion with his chiefs and all the body of the people in Jerusalem, had made a decision to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. It was not possible to keep it at that time, because not enough priests had made themselves holy, and the people had not come together in Jerusalem. And the thing was right in the eyes of the king and all the people. So it was ordered that word was to be sent out through all Israel, from Beersheba to Dan, that they were to come to keep the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel, at Jerusalem, because they had not kept it in great numbers in agreement with the law. So runners went with letters from the king and his chiefs through all Israel and Judah, by the order of the king, saying, O children of Israel, come back again to the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, so that he may come again to that small band of you which has been kept safe out of the hands of the kings of Assyria. Do not be like your fathers and your brothers, who were sinners against the Lord, the God of their fathers, so that he made them a cause of fear, as you see. Now do not be hard-hearted, as your fathers were, but give yourselves to the Lord, and come into his holy place, which he has made his forever, and be the servants of the Lord your God, so that the heat of his wrath may be turned away from you. For if you come back to the Lord, those who took away your brothers and your children will have pity on them, and let them come back to this land, for the Lord your God is full of grace and mercy, and his face will not be turned away from you if you come back to him. So the runners went from town to town through all the country of Ephraim and Manasseh as far as Zebulun, but they were laughed at and made sport of. However, some of Asher and Manasseh and Zebulun put away their pride and came to Jerusalem. And in Judah the power of God gave them one heart to do the orders of the king and the captains, which were taken as the word of the Lord. So a very great number of people came together at Jerusalem to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the 2nd month. And they got to work and took away all the altars in Jerusalem. And they put all the vessels for burning perfumes into the stream Kidron. Then on the 14th day of the 2nd month they put the Passover lambs to death, and the priests and the Levites were shamed, and made themselves holy and took burnt offerings into the house of the Lord. And they took their places in their right order, as it was ordered in the law of Moses, the man of God, the priests straining out on the altar the blood given them by the Levites. For there was still a number of the people there who had not made themselves holy, so the Levites had to put Passover lambs to death for those who were not clean, to make them holy to the Lord. For a great number of the people from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar and Zebulun, had not made themselves clean, but they took the Passover meal, though not in the right way. For Hezekiah had made prayer for them, saying, May the good Lord have mercy on everyone who, with all his heart, is turned to God the Lord, the God of his fathers, even if he has not been made clean after the rules of the holy place. And the Lord gave ear to Hezekiah, and made the people well. So the children of Israel who were present in Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread for 7 days with great joy, and the Levites and the priests gave praise to the Lord day by day, making melody to the Lord with loud instruments. And Hezekiah said kind words to the Levites who were expert in the ordering of the worship of the Lord, so they kept the feast for 7 days, offering peace offerings and praising the Lord, the God of the fathers. And by the desire of all the people, the feast went on for another 7 days, and they kept the 7 days with joy. For Hezekiah, king of Judah, gave to the people for offerings 1,000 oxen and 7,000 sheep, and the rulers gave 1,000 oxen and 10,000 sheep. And a great number of priests made themselves holy. And all the people of Judah, with the priests and the Levites, and those who had come from Israel, and men from other lands who had come from Israel or who were living in Judah, were glad with great joy. So there was great joy in Jerusalem, for nothing like this had been seen in Jerusalem from the time of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. Then the priests and the Levites gave the people a blessing, and the voice of their prayer went up to the holy place of God in heaven. Chapter 31. Now when all this was over, all the men of Israel who were present went out into the towns of Judah, causing the stone pillars to be broken up and the wood pillars to be cut down, pulling down the high places and the altars in all Judah and Benjamin, as well as in Ephraim and Manasseh, till all were gone. Then all the children of Israel went back to their towns, every man to his property. Then Hezekiah put in order the divisions of the priests and Levites, every man in his division, in relation to his work, for the burnt offerings and peace offerings, and for the ordering of worship and for giving praise at the doors of the Lord's house. And he gave the king's part of his private property for the burnt offerings, that is, for the morning and evening offerings, and the offerings for the Sabbath and the new moons and the regular feasts, as it is recorded in the law of the Lord. In addition, he gave orders to the people of Jerusalem to give to the priests and Levites that part which was theirs by right, so that they might be strong in keeping the law of the Lord. And when the order was made public, straightway the children of Israel gave, in great amounts, the firstfruits of their grain and wine and oil and honey, and of the produce of their fields. And they took in a tenth part of everything, a great store. And the children of Israel and Judah, who were living in the towns of Judah, came with a tenth part of their oxen and the sheep, and a tenth of all the holy things which were to be given to the Lord their God, and put them in great masses. The first store of things was put down in the 3rd month, and in the 7th month the masses were complete. And when Hezekiah and the rulers came and saw all the store of goods, they gave praise to the Lord and to his people Israel. Then Hezekiah put questions to the priests and Levites about the store of goods. And Azariah, the chief priest, of the family of Zadok, said in answer, "From the time when the people first came with their offerings into the house of the Lord, we have had food enough, and more than enough, for the blessing of the Lord is on his people, and there is this great store which has not been used." Then Hezekiah said that storerooms were to be made ready in the house of the Lord, and this was done. And in them they put all the offerings and the tenths and the holy things, keeping nothing back, and over them was Conaniah the Levite, with Shimei his brother second to him. And Jehiel and Azathiah and Nahath and Asahel and Jeremoth and Jozabad and Elil and Ismashiah and Mahath and Benaiah were overseers, under the directions of Conaniah and Shimei his brother, by the order of Hezekiah the king and Azariah, the ruler of the house of God. And Kor, the son of Imnah the Levite, the keeper of the east door, had control of the offerings freely given to God, and the distribution of the offerings of the Lord and the most holy things. And under him were Eden and Miniamin and Jeshua and Shemaiah and Amariah and Shechaniah, in the towns of the priests, who were made responsible for giving it to all their brothers, by divisions, to small and great, as well as to all the males, of 3 years old and over, listed by their families, who went into the house of the Lord to do what was needed day by day, for their special work with their divisions. And the families of the priests were listed by their fathers' names, but the Levites, of 20 years old and over, were listed in relation to their work in their divisions, and in the lists were all their little ones and their wives and their sons and daughters, through all the people. They made themselves holy in the positions which they were given. And as for the sons of Aaron, the priests, living in the country on the outskirts of their towns, every different town there were men, marked out by name, to give their part of the goods to all the males among the priests, and to all who were listed among the Levites. This Hezekiah did through all Judah. He did what was good and right and true before the Lord his God. And for everything he undertook, in connection with the work of the house of God and his law and orders, he got directions from God and did it with serious purpose, and things went well for him. Chapter 32. Now after these things and this true-hearted work, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came into Judah, and put his army in position before the walled towns of Judah, designing to make his way into them by force. And when Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come for the purpose of fighting against Jerusalem, he took up with his rulers and men of war the question of stopping up the water springs outside the town, and they gave him their support. So they got together a great number of people, and had all the water springs and the stream flowing through the land stopped up, saying, "Why let the kings of Assyria come and have much water?" Then he took heart, building up the wall where it was broken down, and making its towers higher, and building another wall outside, and he made strong the Milo in the town of David, and got together a great store of all sorts of instruments of war. And he put war chiefs over the people, and sent for them all to come together to him in the wide place at the doorway into the town, and to give them heart he said to them, Be strong and take heart, have no fear, and do not be troubled on account of the king of Assyria and all the great army with him, for there is a greater with us. With him is an arm of flesh, but we have the Lord our God, helping us and fighting for us. And the people put their faith in what Hezekiah, king of Judah, said. After this, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sent his servants to Jerusalem. At that time he was stationed with all his army in front of Lachish, to say to Hezekiah and all the men of Judah in Jerusalem, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, says, In what are you placing your hope, waiting here in the walled town of Jerusalem? Is it not Hezekiah who has got you to do it, causing your death from need of food and water, by saying, The Lord our God will give us salvation out of the hands of the king of Assyria? Has not this same Hezekiah taken away his high places and his altars, saying to Judah and Jerusalem, Give worship before one altar only, burning offerings on it? Have you no knowledge of what I and my fathers have done to all the peoples of every land? Were the gods of the nations of those lands able to keep their land from falling into my hands? Who was there among all the gods of those nations, which my fathers put to destruction, who was able to keep his people safe from my hands? And is it possible that your God will keep you safe from my hands? So do not be tricked by Hezekiah or let him get you to do this, and do not put any faith in what he says, for no god of any nation or kingdom has been able to keep his people safe from my hands, or the hands of my fathers. How much less will your God keep you safe from my hands? And his servants said even more against the Lord God and against his servant Hezekiah. And he sent letters, in addition, to put shame on the Lord, the God of Israel, and to say evil against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of other lands have not been able to keep their people safe from my hands, no more will the God of Hezekiah keep his people safe from my hands. These are things they said, crying out with a loud voice in the Jews' language, to the people of Jerusalem who were on the wall, with the purpose of troubling them and putting fear into them, so that they might take the town, talking of the God of Jerusalem as if he was like the gods of the peoples of the earth, the work of men's hands. And Hezekiah the king, and Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, made prayer because of this, crying out to heaven. And the Lord sent an angel who put to death all the men of war and the chiefs and the captains in the army of the king of Assyria. So he went back to his country in shame. And when he came into the house of his God, his sons, the offspring of his body, put him to death there with the sword. So the Lord gave Hezekiah and the people of Jerusalem salvation from the power of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from all others, giving them rest on every side. And great numbers came to Jerusalem with offerings for the Lord, and things of great price for Hezekiah, king of Judah, so that he was honored among all nations from that time. In those days Hezekiah was ill and near death, and he made prayer to the Lord, and the Lord in answer gave him a sign. But Hezekiah did not do as had been done to him, for his heart was lifted up in pride, and so wrath came on him and on Judah and Jerusalem. But then, Hezekiah, in sorrow for what he had done, put away his pride, and he and all Jerusalem made themselves low, so that the wrath of the Lord did not come on them in Hezekiah's lifetime. And Hezekiah had very great wealth and honor, and he made himself storehouses for his gold and silver and jewels and spices, and for body covers and all sorts of beautiful vessels, and storehouses for the produce of grain and wine and oil, and buildings for all sorts of beasts and flocks. And he made towns for himself, and got together much property in flocks and herds, for God had given him great wealth. It was Hezekiah who had the higher spring of the water of Gihon stopped, and the water taken down on the west side of the town of David. In everything he undertook, Hezekiah did well. However, in the business of the representatives sent by the rulers of Babylon to get news of the wonder which had taken place in the land, God gave up guiding him, testing him to see what was in his heart. Now the rest of the acts of Hezekiah, and the good he did, are recorded in the vision of Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, and in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. So Hezekiah went to rest with his fathers, and they put his body into the higher part of the resting places of the sons of David, and all Judah and the people of Jerusalem gave him honor at his death, and Manasseh his son became king in his place. Chapter 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he became king, and he was ruling for 55 years in Jerusalem. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, copying the disgusting ways of the nations whom the Lord had sent out of the land before the children of Israel. For he put up again the high places which had been pulled down by his father Hezekiah, and he made altars for the Baals, and pillars of wood, and was a worshipper and servant of all the stars of heaven, and he made altars in the house of the Lord, of which the Lord had said, "In Jerusalem will my name be forever." And he made altars for all the stars of heaven in the 2 outer squares of the house of the Lord. More than this, he made his children go through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and he made use of secret arts, and signs for reading the future, and unnatural powers, and gave positions to those who had control of spirits and to wonder workers. He did much evil in the eyes of the Lord, moving him to wrath. And he put the image he had made in the house of God, the house of which God had said to David and to Solomon his son, "In this house, and in Jerusalem, the town which I have made mine out of all the tribes of Israel, will I put my name forever, and never again will I let the feet of Israel be moved out of the land which I have given to their fathers, if only they will take care to do all my orders, even all the law and the orders and the rules given to them by Moses." And Manasseh made Judah and the people of Jerusalem go out of the true way, so that they did more evil than those nations whom the Lord gave up to destruction before the children of Israel. And the word of the Lord came to Manasseh and his people, but they gave no attention. So the Lord sent against them the captains of the army of Assyria, who made Manasseh a prisoner and took him away in chains to Babylon. And crying out to the Lord his God in his trouble, he made himself low before the God of his fathers, and made prayer to him, and in answer to his prayer God let him come back to Jerusalem and to his kingdom. Then Manasseh was certain that the Lord was God. After this he made an outer wall for the town of David, on the west side of Gihon in the valley, as far as the way into the town by the fish doorway, and he put a very high wall round the Aphel, and he put captains of the army in all the walled towns of Judah. He took away the strange gods and the image out of the house of the Lord, and all the altars he had put up on the hill of the Lord's house and in Jerusalem, and put them out of the town. And he put the altar of the Lord in order, offering peace offerings and praise offerings on it, and said that all Judah were to be servants of the Lord, the God of Israel. However, the people still made offerings in the high places, but only to the Lord their God. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and his prayer to his God, and the words which the seers said to him in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, are recorded among the acts of the kings of Israel, and the prayer which he made to God, and how God gave him an answer, and all his sin and his wrongdoing, and the places where he made high places and put up pillars of wood and images, before he put away his pride, are recorded in the history of the seers. So Manasseh went to rest with his fathers, and they put his body to rest in his house, and Amon his son became king in his place. Amon was 22 years old when he became king, and he was ruling for 2 years in Jerusalem. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, as Manasseh his father had done, and Amon made offerings to all the images which his father Manasseh had made, and was their servant. He did not make himself low before the Lord, as his father Manasseh had done, but went on sinning more and more. And his servants made a secret design against him, and put him to death in his house. But the people of the land put to death all those who had taken part in the design against King Amon, and made his son Josiah king in his place. Chapter 34. Josiah was 8 years old when he became king. He was ruling in Jerusalem for 31 years. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, walking in the ways of his father David, without turning to the right hand or to the left. In the 8th year of his rule, while he was still young, his heart was first turned to the God of his father David, and in the 12th year he undertook the clearing away of all the high places and the pillars and the images of wood and metal from Judah and Jerusalem. He had the altars of the Baals broken down, while he himself was present, and the sun images which were placed on high over them he had cut down, and the pillars of wood and the metal images he had broken up and crushed to dust, dropping the dust over the resting places of the dead who had made offerings to them. And he had the bones of the priests burned on their altars, and so he made Judah and Jerusalem clean. And in all the towns of Manasseh and Ephraim and Simeon as far as Naphtali, he made waste their houses round about. He had the altars and the pillars of wood pulled down and the images crushed to dust, and all the sun images cut down, through all the land of Israel, and then he went back to Jerusalem. Now in the 18th year of his rule, when the land and the house had been made clean, he sent Shaphan, the son of Azaliah, and Maariah, the ruler of the town, and Joah, the son of Joaz, the recorder, to make good what was damaged in the house of the Lord his God. And they came to Hilkiah, the chief priest, and gave him all the money which had been taken into the house of God, which the Levites, the keepers of the door, had got from Manasseh and Ephraim and those of Israel who had not been taken away as prisoners, and from all Judah and Benjamin and the people of Jerusalem. And they gave it to the overseers of the work of the Lord's house, and the overseers gave it to the workmen working in the house, for building it up and making good what was damaged, even to the woodworkers and builders to get cut stone and wood for joining the structure together and for making boards for the houses which the kings of Judah had given up to destruction. And the men did the work well, and those who had authority over them were Jahath and Obadiah, Levites of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam, of the sons of the Kohathites, who were to be responsible for seeing that the work was done, and others of the Levites, who were expert with instruments of music, had authority over the transport workers, giving directions to all who were doing any sort of work. And among the Levites there were scribes and overseers and doorkeepers. Now when they were taking out the money which had come into the Lord's house, Hilkiah the priest came across the book of the law of the Lord, which he had given by the mouth of Moses. Then Hilkiah said to Shaphan the scribe, I have made discovery of the book of the law in the house of the Lord. And Hilkiah gave the book to Shaphan. And Shaphan took the book to the king, and he gave him an account of what had been done, saying, Your servants are doing all they have been given to do. They have taken out all the money which was in the Lord's house and have given it to the overseers and to the workmen. Then Shaphan the scribe said to the king, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book, and he started reading some of it to the king. And the king, hearing the words of the law, took his robe in his hands, violently parting it as a sign of his grief. And he gave orders to Hilkiah and to Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, and Abdon, the son of Micah, and Shaphan the scribe and Isaiah, the king's servant, saying, Go and get directions from the Lord for me and for those who are still in Israel and for Judah, about the words of this book which has come to light, for great is the wrath of the Lord which has been let loose on us, because our fathers have not kept the word of the Lord or done what is recorded in this book. So Hilkiah, and those whom the king sent, went to Huldah the woman prophet, the wife of Shallum, the son of Tokath, the son of Hazra, the keeper of the robes. Now she was living in Jerusalem, in the second part of the town, and they had talk with her about this thing. And she said to them, The Lord, the God of Israel, has said, Say to the man who sent you to me, These are the words of the Lord, See, I will send evil on this place and on its people, even all the curses in the book which they have been reading before the king of Judah, because they have given me up, burning offerings to other gods and moving me to wrath by all the works of their hands. So my wrath is let loose on this place and will not be put out. But to the king of Judah who sent you to get directions from the Lord, say, This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, has said, because you have given ear to my words, and your heart was soft, and you made yourself low before God, on hearing his words about this place and its people, and with weeping and signs of grief have made yourself low before me, I have given ear to you, says the Lord God. See, I will let you go to your fathers, and be put in your last resting place in peace, and your eyes will not see all the evil which I will send on this place and on its people." So they took this news back to the king. Then the king sent and got together all the responsible men of Judah and of Jerusalem. And the king went up to the house of the Lord, with all the men of Judah and the people of Jerusalem, and the priests and the Levites and all the people, small and great, and they were present at his reading of the book of the law which had come to light in the house of the Lord. Then the king, taking his place by the pillar, made an agreement before the Lord, to go in the way of the Lord, and to keep his orders and his decisions and his rules with all his heart and with all his soul, and to keep the words of the agreement recorded in this book. And he made all the people in Jerusalem and Benjamin give their word to keep it. And the people of Jerusalem kept the agreement of God, the God of the fathers. Josiah took away all the disgusting things out of all the lands of the children of Israel, and made all who were in Israel servants of the Lord their God. And as long as he was living they were true to the Lord, the God of the fathers. Chapter 35. And Josiah kept a Passover to the Lord in Jerusalem. On the 14th day of the first month they put the Passover lamb to death. And he gave the priests their places, making them strong for the work of the house of God. And he said to the Levites, the teachers of all Israel, who were holy to the Lord, "See, the holy ark is in the house which Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, made. It will no longer have to be transported on your backs. Now be the servants of the Lord your God and his people Israel, and make yourselves ready in your divisions, by your families, as it is ordered in the writings of David, king of Israel, and of Solomon his son, and take your positions in the holy place, grouped in the families of your brothers, the children of the people, and for every division let there be a part of a family of the Levites, and put the Passover lamb to death, and make yourselves holy, and make it ready for your brothers, so that the orders given by the Lord through Moses may be done." And Josiah gave lambs and goats from the flock as Passover offerings for all the people who were present, to the number of 30,000, and 3,000 oxen. These were from the king's private property. And his captains freely gave an offering to the people, the priests, and the Levites. Hilkiah and Zechariah and Jehiel, the rulers of the house of God, gave to the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 small cattle and 300 oxen. And Conaniah and Shemaiah and Nethanel, his brothers, and Hashabiah and Jeiel and Jozabad, the chiefs of the Levites, gave to the Levites for the Passover offerings 5,000 small cattle and 500 oxen. So everything was made ready, and the priests took their places with the Levites in their divisions, as the king had said. And they put the Passover lambs to death, the blood being drained out by the priests when it was given to them, and the Levites did the skinning. And they took away the burnt offerings, so that they might give them to be offered to the Lord for the divisions of the families of the people, as it is recorded in the book of Moses. And they did the same with the oxen. And the Passover lamb was cooked over the fire, as it says in the law, and the holy offerings were cooked in pots and basins and vessels, and taken quickly to all the people. And after that, they made ready for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron, were offering the burnt offerings and the fat till night. So the Levites made ready what was needed for themselves and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. And the sons of Asaph, the makers of melody, were in their places, as ordered by David and Asaph and Heman and Jeduthun, the king's seer. And the doorkeepers were stationed at every door. There was no need for them to go away from their places, for their brothers the Levites made ready for them. So everything needed for the worship of the Lord was made ready that same day, for the keeping of the Passover and the offering of burnt offerings on the altar of the Lord, as King Josiah had given orders. And all the children of Israel who were present kept the Passover and the feast of unleavened bread at that time for 7 days. No Passover like it had been kept in Israel from the days of Samuel the prophet, and not one of the kings of Israel had ever kept a Passover like the one kept by Josiah and the priests and the Levites and all those of Judah and Israel who were present, and the people of Jerusalem. In the 18th year of the rule of Josiah this Passover was kept. After all this, and after Josiah had put the house in order, Necho, king of Egypt, went up to make war at Carchemish by the river Euphrates, and Josiah went out against him. But he sent representatives to him, saying, "What have I to do with you, O king of Judah? I have not come against you this day, but against those with whom I am at war, and God has given me orders to go forward quickly. Keep out of God's way, for he is with me, or he will send destruction on you." However, Josiah would not go back, but keeping to his purpose of fighting against him, and giving no attention to the words of Necho, which came from God, he went forward to the fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the bowmen sent their arrows at King Josiah, and the king said to his servants, "Take me away, for I am badly wounded." So his servants took him out of the line of war carriages, and put him in his second carriage and took him to Jerusalem, where he came to his end. And they put his body in the resting place of his fathers. And in all Judah and Jerusalem there was great weeping for Josiah. And Jeremiah made a song of grief for Josiah. And to this day Josiah is named by all the makers of melody, men and women. In their songs of grief, they made it a rule in Israel, and the songs are recorded among the songs of grief. Now the rest of the acts of Josiah, and the good he did, in keeping with what is recorded in the law of the Lord, and all his acts, first and last, are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. Chapter 36. Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz, the son of Josiah, and made him king in Jerusalem in place of his father. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he became king. He was ruling in Jerusalem for 3 months. Then the king of Egypt took the kingdom from him in Jerusalem, and put on the land a tax of 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Judah and Jerusalem, changing his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took his brother Jehoahaz away to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he became king. He was ruling in Jerusalem for 11 years, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord his God. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came up against him, and took him away in chains to Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar took away some of the vessels of the Lord's house, and put them in the house of his God in Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim and the disgusting things he did, and all there is to be said against him, are recorded in the book of the kings of Israel and Judah. And Jehoiakim his son became king in his place. Jehoiakim was 18 years old when he became king. He was ruling in Jerusalem for 3 months and 10 days, and he did evil in the eyes of the Lord. In the spring of the year King Nebuchadnezzar sent and took him away to Babylon, with the beautiful vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah, his father's brother, king over Judah and Jerusalem. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he became king. He was ruling in Jerusalem for 11 years. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and did not make himself low before Jeremiah the prophet who gave him the word of the Lord. And he took up arms against King Nebuchadnezzar, though he had made him take an oath by God. But he made his neck stiff and his heart hard, turning away from the Lord, the God of Israel. And more than this, all the great men of Judah and the priests and the people made their sin great, turning to all the disgusting ways of the nations. And they made unclean the house of the Lord which he had made holy in Jerusalem. And the Lord, the God of their fathers, sent word to them by his servants, sending early and frequently, because he had pity on his people and on his living place. But they put shame on the servants of God, making sport of his words and laughing at his prophets, till the wrath of God was moved against his people, till there was no help. So he sent against them the king of the Chaldeans, who put their younger men to death with the sword in the house of their holy place, and had no pity for any young man or virgin. old man or white-haired, God gave them all into his hands. And all the vessels of the house of God, great and small, and the stored wealth of the Lord's house and the wealth of the king and his chiefs, he took away to Babylon. And the house of God was burned and the wall of Jerusalem broken down. All its great houses were burned with fire and all its beautiful vessels given up to destruction. And all who had not come to death by the sword he took away prisoners to Babylon, and they became servants to him and to his sons till the kingdom of Persia came to power, so that the words of the Lord, which he said by the mouth of Jeremiah, might come true, till the land had had pleasure in her Sabbaths, for as long as she was waste the land kept the Sabbath, till 70 years were complete. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order that the words which the Lord had said by the mouth of Jeremiah might come true, the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, was moved by the Lord, and he made a public statement and had it given out through all his kingdom and put in writing, saying, Cyrus, king of Persia, has said, all the kingdoms of the earth have been given to me by the Lord, the God of heaven, and he has made me responsible for building a house for him in Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever there is among you of all his people, may the Lord his God be with him and let him go up,